All right. Hello, my name is Sarah, and I'm here to give a little walkthrough of some lesson planning I'm doing for an upcoming class. I'm going to be doing this class in virtual reality, so I want to plan for my lesson using the Immerse desktop application for teachers. I'm preparing for this class, and I'm going to basically take you through my entire process of what I need to do to prepare for this lesson. So I already have the application open so I can begin to plan, and I'm just going to make it full screen to make this a bit easier to read. I have a little toggle up here in the upper right-hand corner, and when I click on that, I have a nice full screen view of what I'm doing today. For the lesson that I have upcoming with my students, I'm going to be working on a debate. So I'm just going to take a look around in Immerse and see where the best place to host a debate is, although I have a pretty good idea that there is a debate room here that I can use for this lesson plan. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. All right, so now I'm in that debate room scene, and I can take a look around. As you can see, we have some great tables here. I can have my students sit down. Looks like we have a bit of an interactive buzzer. I'm probably too far away. Let's get a little bit closer. Let's see, is that buzzer work? Oh, look at that. Great. So we have a nice little buzzer feature. There, over here, we have a timer, so we can do timed activities or time responses. I have a dynamic interactive smart screen over here, so I can share a Google slide, or I could share a YouTube video, or if I needed to, some text with my students. So that's a nice flexible piece. And I can see there's a bit of an audience here waiting in the background. That's fantastic. That will give my students that authentic experience of speaking in front of strangers, which I think will be a lot of fun. So for this debate class, I kind of have some ideas, but I'd like to see if there's anything else I can do. So I'm going to open up the planning hub. You saw me do that, but I'll do it one more time. That planning hub is over here on the right-hand side of our screen, and it's that first icon at the top. That's the experience plan. You'll notice right now this is empty. I'm about to write the lesson plan, so I will be filling this in with some information. So I'm really not here to teach right now. I am here to plan. So I'll go ahead and click that plan button. And this opens up the planning hub where now I can really go in and start to write in my lesson plan and decide what it is that I'm doing in this class. But before I really dig into planning, I'd like to see if perhaps there are any lessons from Immerse that I can use. I know that in the Immerse application, they provide a number of lesson plans and also lesson ideas that I can potentially use to build out a VR interaction. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this folder from Immerse, and we can see we have two different lesson plans. I can preview those by clicking on them. So this is a lesson plan. Here are the instructions. So this is, we're going to have a debate. It's about traditions. That's a great topic. Students often have a lot of opinions about traditions. I could certainly modify this for my purposes, but it's a bit low level. As you can see here, this is an A2 level plan. It's not quite what I'm looking for today. Here we have another one. This is agreement or disagreement, and it's called up for debate. This is an instructional idea, and as you can see, this is giving me a bit of information about pre-work my students may have done in the classroom. Then I have information about what to do in VR, a couple of optional pieces here, and then a nice reflective closing, actually. So let's take a look in depth at this. What were we doing? So in the classroom, my students have learned some information. Great. In fact, in the classroom, we've been working on preparing for debates. I've been doing pros and cons, and we've done this with a few different subjects, some environmental issues, a few nightlife issues, having some fun with my students and different topics of social relevance. So this instructional idea connecting back to the classroom will be great. I can also work with some mediation if I want to there, that like that. And then in the debate, they answer the question and we use the timer to keep people on task. Yeah, this is pretty much where I'm going. So this instructional idea is essentially what I need. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that over here into the planning part of the planning hub so I can begin to make some modifications. Great. So now that I know that's what I'm going to do, I can go back to elements here, and this will allow me to begin to plan with the different elements available. I have my teacher planning and my scene elements. Well, the first thing, obviously, this is an idea for instruction, but we want to turn this into a lesson plan. So I want to actually start off with having my objectives. And I think I'm going to put that in a drop-down menu. So I'm going to go ahead and put a drop-down menu in. Drop-down is great because I can use this to add information that I don't want to see all the time. And I love objectives, but I don't need to be looking at objectives the entire time that I'm planning a lesson. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my objectives up here. And in this drop-down space, I can add in those objectives. All right, so now I have a space for my objectives, but I need the objectives that I want to work with. And I have a general sense of the level I'm working at here. This will be somewhere in the B levels. I anticipate for this particular debate, since it's a spoken performance debate, we're probably looking at around a B1, B1 plus. And yeah, it's time to go get some learning objectives. So I am going to go to my general favorite reference for learning objectives using the global scale of English, which is a research calibrated set of granular learning objectives aligned to the Common European Framework of Reference, or the CEFR. And fortunately, the global scale of English has this handy teacher toolkit that's totally free to use, where you can actually search for language objectives, which is fantastic if you're planning a lesson. So I need to go ahead and choose my learner. Because this is a debate that's a slightly more academic skill than it is an adult skill, so I'm going to go ahead and use academic. Even though I'm working primarily with adult learners, it's just a bit more of an academic skill. I know that I want a speaking lesson, so I'm going to go ahead and select speaking. This is really, we're going to focus on production. Generally, I anticipate this will be in the B ranges, so I'm going to go ahead and slide this ruler up here so I can see everything that comes above that B level. And because it's a debate skill and we are going to have a bit of like arguing, agreeing, and disagreeing with opinions, I'll go ahead and just go ahead and start typing in argue to see what comes up, and I'll show results. And when I click that show results button, I should get a few different things that I could use potentially in my lesson. So let's take a look at what we've got here. Great. Developing an argument. No, I want to go beyond common fixed expressions. Justifying and sustaining a point of view and providing relevant arguments. That's great. It's a B2. That's about where I anticipate this lesson to be. So it was in the B levels. It's a high B. That's fine. I like this too, developing an argument and giving reasons. Slightly above the 62, but still good. I feel like that justifying and sustaining the points of view is a bit closer, but I also do need to see that development. So I might just pick up both. And now I've got those objectives in my lesson plan. I'll probably want to clarify this later into a students will be able to, just so I have a really clear idea of how my students are accomplishing these objectives by the end of the lesson. But now I can really begin to move on and just build this out, make sure everything's in the right place. I can move things up or down. I want to move this down, as you can see, and put those objectives at the top of the lesson if I need to. And again, I can hide those by clicking show less, so I don't have to see that as I'm going through my lesson today. So now I'm ready to go ahead and start editing this out. I want to build this out. So in the classroom, explain the information learned in L1. So this is a little vague because I haven't been given the language, which is great. I know specifically what I want my students to do. So I can just go ahead and start editing this. So I'm going to, in the classroom, I'm going to prepare. I'm going to call that prepare my students for a debate. And I've already done this work, so I'm just referencing work that I've already done. Prepare and think about this in advance. So that's really everything I need to prompt and get started on this lesson plan and begin to bring this into my classroom. At least I know what I'm doing in my classroom and how that's going to connect with that virtual reality experience. So from here, I can really dig in and think about the virtual reality experience. So for my virtual reality experience, I am absolutely going to bring my students to the debate room. I'm going to have students take positions. Actually, I am going to assign um, to take positions on the debate stage. Great, yeah. So I am going to assign my students positions, and I'm going to place them in teams. And then we'll have a pro group and a con group. And that's great. So each student is going to have an opportunity to present their topic, their thoughts on school uniforms. I'm just customizing this to really make it specific for my lesson. And they can answer and respond or comments. And right there, key details and information, that's very much a part of those objectives, as we saw up here. Those objectives is being able to provide relevant explanations in the argument or giving information on their point of view. Connected to my objectives, so that's great. So we'll definitely do that. Learners will have an opportunity to present their thoughts on school uniforms. Great, that looks great. I will use the timer to encourage students to stay on tasks, and I'm going to allow time. The time will be 4 minutes for each group to present their thoughts. And actually, I'll ask each student, or I'm actually going to have each student present for the group. So if I have 2 students in my group, each student can speak for 2 minutes. So we'll have a total of 4 minutes speaking time about pros, a total of 4 minutes speaking time about cons. But if there are 2 students in the group, each student will have 2 minutes. If there's only 1 student in the group, each student would have 4 minutes. So we'll have a little bit of time there for students to work. And that's where we'll split the time. And then in the presentation, all right, their argument. Any questions? All right, great. So I've already kind of started boiling this into a quick lesson plan. This idea gave me a lot to work with. And really what I need to do is to just check and make sure everything is here so I can wrap this up in that closing. I'm going to take a look at this optional note, having a slide. Do I need slides to accompany my presentation in this debate? It might be useful to have the question on the screen so the students can see it and think. And I may also want to give my students some time to prepare, especially since we're in virtual reality. So I like this little optional. In fact, I think I'm going to add this into my lesson plan. And that's basically it. So we're going to go ahead and use those slides. We'll put up the question, give some students some organization time. And then after that, when the time is up on the screen and students are ready to go, I'll have them hit the buzzer and then I'll know who's presenting first. So while I know that I'm going to be using a Google slide deck, I'm just going to go ahead and do that now to make sure that I'm ready to go. So I have a Google slide ready to fill in here, so to make that very easy for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and add the question, which is this one: are school uniforms still necessary? I'm going to add that note there for my students so they know that. And now we have a nice little slideshow. So now I've made my Google slide that I'm going to share. I'm going to save that link here in my lesson plan so I can get it later. I also want to just check really quick and make sure that that will share properly. So I'll go over here to my dynamic interactive slideshow. I'm going to take my icon off the screen for a second, or my avatar, if you will, just so I can see this. Hi guys, how you doing? I'm going to paste the URL to my slideshow that I just made and load that presentation. And there, Beautiful. It's up for debate. Great. Let's talk about education. Are school uniforms still necessary? And I even have my little time there. That looks beautiful. Can even check that from different points of view. I know my students will be sitting down here. Oh, look at that. That's really nice. It looks great. Just above my audience, really putting the pressure maybe a little on my students. But for a B2 level lesson where I really want that authentic language, I think this will be really appropriate for this view. So that's fantastic. So I've built that in now and I'm ready to go. All right, and that's really it. I feel good about my objective here. I've captured most of the information that I want to use inside of my presentation for today. I've kind of taken that original idea that came from Immerse and built it out a little bit more, customized that to make it a bit more relevant specifically for my lesson, which of course means adding some things, changing some things, just really curating that experience and modifying it so it fits with what I need my students to do. I pretty much have everything I need because I know that my students will have some time to prep with each other. They're sitting across from each other on the stage. It's pretty cut and dry, so I can go ahead and save this, check my information. I have my Sobat here sharing arguments in an interactive time debate. Great. I have my agree and disagree. That's essentially the language family where this would really sit in because this is definitely agreement and disagreement. A little summary of that, and I tag this as a B2, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. And I'll replace that since I'm just saving it one more time. Excellent. So I can go through and check one more time, make sure I have everything in here. Look around my room. It's up for debate. I can start and stop my timer. This will be super easy to do. Fantastic. So now really the only thing left is getting some students in here and leading them through this debate. So thanks so much for taking some time to listen to this lesson planning. I hope that you found some useful information here on how to go from an instructional idea and really modify that and own that to match the content that you're going to be working with inside of your classroom. And I look forward to having you return and seeing what happens when we actually put some students inside of this lesson. So thanks again and look forward to seeing you in the future.